70 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 5 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. When I was a kid in school, Robin, I was pretty good with the science class. I liked science for some reason.
Oh, me too.
And math came pretty
loved it.
easy for me too. The
Me too.
one that I seemed to fall asleep in or was so like glassy-eyed over was history. I just wasn't that. I don't know what it was. Now, I mean, if I went back to school now, I think I'd be much better at it. But back then, I kind of was. I lost interest in it. When you take a test and say, what year did this happen? So I would always say, why do I need to know the year something happened?
Yeah.
But I would go to a movie, for example, and if the movie showed something that I had been learning about or something that I would be learning about, it got into my brain better. Something about putting history into a story really, really, really made a big difference for me. For example, if the movie Star Wars had somehow embedded in the storyline, I mean, real history and real science. There might be some real science in that. I don't know. I'm not really sure. And just some real things. I bet you that, I don't know. It would have such a great influence on the kids who watch it and anybody really. Our next guest has a wonderful idea and has written a wonderful book that does this. With words, simply with words. It's a book. It's called Leonardo da Vinci Gets a Do-Over. Mark P. Friedlander Jr. is the author. He served in the United States Air Force. He's an attorney. He's a member of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. So right there, you got a guy in the Air Force who's also a law guy, who's also a children's book writer and obviously a lover of children. He's with the Authors Guild. He's with the Children's Book Guild of Washington, D.C. It goes on and on and on. Wants to talk to us about the pros and cons of STEM education: science, technology, engineering, and math. And I think to throw in history, which is why Leonardo da Vinci is getting a makeover in the book. And
Yep.
he's alive, by the way, now. Right?
Yes.
He's alive. He's
Yes,
living.
He is. Yes, he is.
These kids discover him.
Yeah.
Mark, this is a fun book. Thank you, and I love the hidden agenda, which is to educate children. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you all, and thanks for the comments about the book. It's everybody's heard of historic fiction. This is a new genre. It's educational fiction. And the fun part of it is, here is a imaginary story, obviously. Leonardo da Vinci, after 500 years, comes to the 21st century. And anyone can think of all the exciting things. Here's what he has to learn to survive in the 21st century. He has a job to do in the book. He has to invent something of value or discover something of value for all mankind, because he was the great genius of the Renaissance. But in the story, which is a young adult fiction, is embedded math, science, history, and geography, all quite accurate. And you get to absorb it without knowing you learn anything.
Right, and that would have been me. I would have been that student in school. I would have been that one who would do better on the test after having a work of fiction that educated me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what you're saying.
I'm saying that, yes, exactly, and also might spark your interest to look further into any one of the aspects of the history, like America's Vespucius was a teenager in Florence at the same time that Leonardo da Vinci was.
I didn't know that.
Well, now that can lead to the question of who was he? Why are we in America and not Columbus's name?
Right.
So there were a lot of these things in it, and what the problem is that under STEM and under Common Core, a lot of schools are obliged, because of the finances, to teach to the test and get focused on math and science. And as good as math and science are, and as important as they are, history and geography and a knowledge of our government is also important.
Are they leaving those out? Are those subjects left out?
Well, they're not left out, but they're not emphasized.
Oh, I didn't know that. No, and that doesn't seem like it would be a smart thing to do.
Well, a lot of people think that it's not the focus being on the science and math without being well-rounded. Some people have come up with the idea of, instead of STEAM, and adding the arts as the A in that magic letters.
But for any good school system, you have to have everything incorporated in that school system, because not each child is the same. They each have their own different interests, and they're going to have different career paths.
I think that's absolutely correct. Now, in the setting up the Innovators in Action program with the publisher, a small publishing house in Washington, if anybody buys the book, just simply going to Amazon and puts in Leonardo da Vinci Gets a Do-Over, if they look at the website of the publisher, they can click a button and get a 60-page teacher's guide that has all kind of activities that arise and experiments that arise out of the chapters of the book, and that's free.
Nice.
If I were to take this to the schools right now, is the book already in the schools?
In some schools, those that are interested. I mean, it's fairly new.
I mean, we have such a reliance on, I mean, when I was a kid, we weren't allowed to have calculators in class. Now you can have a whole computer in your hand in class. And so I don't know if we're relying too much on like how often do you find like you say, well, what's north of Florida, and then they don't know it's Georgia. They don't even know north from south.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the geography part, and the history of just our own little, wherever you happen to live in the country or in the world, just the history of your town is so important. Not let alone the history that explains how this country got established.
Well, I think that all of those things are necessary for a full, rounded education. But I think that the thing that aids education is excitement for learning.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think too the best teachers are the ones that do it subliminally. It's not only the teachers in school, but you take the Peanuts. I mean, Schroeder was playing the piano, the toy piano, but he had the bust of Bach on his piano. You've got the Teenage Ninja Turtles that came popular in the 80s, and they were named after great artists. And once a person found out the origin of those names, well, how come they're called Donatello or Leonardo?
Right.
Some of those children went off to investigate, and they became artists themselves, or sculptors, or whatever.
Well, that was the whole idea of educational fiction. Enough fiction, so it's fun to read. You don't have to study anything. You just read it, and there's excitement in the reading. But whether you know it or not, there are, in this particular book, there are about 25 things that you're going to learn that you never knew before, and maybe some of them will spark your interest to go further, and you can.
And
cool book.
Leonardo da Vinci is an interesting person to make as the person who you give a makeover to, because while part of the world thinks of him as this accomplished artist, there's another part of the world that recognizes his understanding of science and technology of his day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was way ahead of his time. He had a problem with the medical community because he didn't think they had it right. And he had done about 30 examinations of dead bodies so that he could try to figure out how the body worked. He never quite got it right because he couldn't determine about blood flow, but that is what made his drawings very, very special, because he did drawings of the bodies that he would examine.
Let's take a little break, and we'll be right back. Leonardo da Vinci Gets a Do-Over is the title of the book, right? I have that right?
That is correct.
Mark P. Friedlander is our guest, and he's the author of the book. We're talking not only about the book, which we kind of haven't been fair to the book yet.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
I want the young readers to know what's in the book as well, or parents of young readers. And but the bigger topic, obviously, is the pros and cons of STEM education, of Common Core, perhaps, and maybe how we need to a do-over of the education system. We'll take a little break and be right back with all of that.
You've got a garden, and we've got a show for you called You've Got a Garden with your host, Master Gardener Carolyn Baldwin. Carolyn answers your questions about your flowers, your veggies, your grass, your trees, even questions about your bugs. And she's only on WOCA, so don't miss Carolyn Baldwin and You've Got a Garden each Tuesday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. right here on WOCA The Source.
Looking to put your money to work? Florida Credit Union has 3 CD specials: 12 months for 1.05% APY, 24 months for 1.50% APY, and 36 months for 1.75% APY each, with a $10,000 minimum. Federally insured by the NCUA. APY equals annual percentage yield. These rates effective through February 28th, 2016, subject to change at any time. Visit one of Florida Credit Union's convenient locations today or their website at flcu.org. Okay, thank you for waiting through the break. Mark Friedlander is on the phone. Mark, where are you? Where are you calling from?
I am calling from Northern Virginia.
Oh, okay. Your service in the Air Force obviously made an impact on you or on anybody who serves in the armed forces, as far as the well-rounded education that you need to have in order to do anything in life.
I feel that my time as a pilot in the Air Force during the Korean War really opened my eyes to a lot of areas of study.
Well, and as a pilot, I mean, just looking down and knowing what geography that you've learned, I mean, even just as a passenger in an airplane, I do the same thing. I look down and I say, oh, there's the Mississippi River, and that must be Louisiana down there. Oh, that city must be Houston. You sort of kind of know the the layout in your mind. You don't need a computer for that.
Yes, and you also better know your geography, because you're not supposed to fly through mountains. You're supposed to go over them.
Right.
The small details.
Exactly.
I want to make sure that
minor.
The people who have young readers will like this book. I want to make sure they know what's in it. But let's take a couple of calls first. Good morning. Thank you for calling. You're on the air.
Yes. Good morning. Good morning. When I was in school, when I was in junior high school and high school. We did a lot of reading in our English class, and there was a lot of historical fiction. The ones that stand out are Johnny Tremaine and April Morning and David Copperfield and the Odyssey and things like that today. But that was a whole education of the world in fiction.
You can see that in those pieces as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you. Appreciate that. So
have a good morning.
Thank you. So Mark, give us like the movie trailer version of, if you would, of the book.
Well, it's very simple. It's determined that Leonardo da Vinci, as much of a genius that he was, actually never was able to build any of the things that he designed, because he was ahead of his time. They didn't have the materials. So fictionally, he is given a do-over. He gets a chance to come back to the 21st century, right at the beginning of the 21st century in Florence. And when he comes to Florence, there is a junior high school field trip, and he meets 3 students. The students believe what he says, that he is Leonardo da Vinci returned with a mission. the adults, the teachers, of course, do think he's just an actor because a person cannot return
Right.
from the dead.
Right.
And so that is the battle of the story, and it leads him to a university. It leads him to a discovery that is quite remarkable. And that's the story.
And that's what we don't want to talk about because that would you want to keep something.
I can tell you how it ends.
No, you don't want to do
But he
that.
goes through the
no.
adventure
It's
of
wonderful.
flying in an airplane and doing all of the things that he dreamed of doing.
So are the kids able to say, you weren't able to build them, but look at here it is. Somebody else built it for you.
Oh yes, they show him all the things that are new. I mean, just things that are remarkable. A zipper, a paperclip.
Oh yeah.
Photographs, movies. I mean, you go on and on and on. There are all of those things that we take for granted that are brand new to somebody who's 500 years old.
And it's like computers also, because you just can't build this box with electronic workings and push a button and think that it's going to understand you. You, the person, have to absolutely load up all the information. So you, the person, has to have the knowledge, the correct information in a computer.
Absolutely. That's why we all go talk to Mr. Google.
What about Leonardo da Vinci himself? Do we learn about Leonardo da Vinci in the book?
Yes, you learn about his personality, you learn about what he did, because everything that is history or geography in connection with Leonardo is absolutely accurate.
And do we? I wonder who the modern day Leonardo da Vinci would be. Obviously, in today's day and age, the ability to do artwork that looks photographic is not. People aren't as impressed with that anymore because, I know this from artists we've had on the show. We've had Peter Max on the show. Peter Max is the guy who did all that like Beatles-esque kind of stuff. But before he did all that stuff, he had realistic-looking paintings, and nobody wanted anything to do with him. So in Leonardo da Vinci's day, that was like, how do you do that? How do you get an image? Because there was nothing to compare it to. There was no camera.
If you wanted to see what somebody looked like, you had to have a painting. And it was usually only the rich people that could afford to have that done. And Leonardo was probably the finest artist around because he had perspective in his paintings.
Yeah. But and I think through the painting, that must have been how he made his living, because you obviously couldn't earn a living by drawing helicopters.
No, he made his living, of course, with paintings,
Yeah.
and also he designed military equipment. He was, when he died, he had been invited by the King of France to come to France because the young king, just wanted to talk to him. He was so smart. He just wanted to talk to him and gain the knowledge that he had. And so that was where he ended up his final days. And all of that is in the book, and it's all totally accurate.
I love how you fell in love with Italy, because you yourself and your wife being world travelers, you had the opportunity to explore every country and every culture. And there was just something about the culture of Italy from way back when till now that you really embraced.
Well, Florence, there's the ghosts of Leonardo, Michelangelo, Galileo. I mean, all of these very famous people, all in this one city, somehow or another. The ghosts seem to be floating all around and filled you with awe and wonder at what they did.
In this day of the politicians, I mentioned earlier that we went to this town hall meeting with Jeb Bush. It was in another interview, but Jeb Bush, I guess, is for the Common Core, and to be honest with you, I don't even know. Except that every once in a while, like, somebody will try to persuade you to believe one way or the other, or to think one way or the other, and they'll show you an example of Common Core. Do you know enough about it so I can ask you some questions about it? A lot of people are
It's a
against
standard.
it.
Well, it's a standard, and what I think the biggest objection to it is that if you learn to the test, you're not learning.
That is a good objection. Yeah. So is that the main thing, or are they leaving out American history and those kinds of things?
Well, if your money from the federal government is dependent upon how you score in your schools, that's where the emphasis is. I don't think they're leaving them out, but the emphasis is on those things that raise the standards for science and math, which allow the states to get funding from the federal government. That's the objection. The big objection is you're getting a central control from Washington that doesn't fit all parts of our country. I mean, we have a country that is very diverse, and many different cultures, and many different attitudes. And by taking away the direction of the local community as opposed to the federal government, that's the objection. I don't think raising standards of reading and math is bad. I think it's good.
Okay. The book is called Leonardo da Vinci Gets a Do-Over. I have a question about the children of today understanding the effect of maybe culture or maybe religion on a person who was born in Leonardo da Vinci's time. Leonardo da Vinci, in your book, it says, was the illegitimate son of Ser Piero da Vinci.
His father was a lawyer. They call him notary. His father was a lawyer.
So back in those days, I mean, today it's probably not that much of a taboo if a lady gets pregnant by somebody she's not married to. But back then it was a big deal, right? So did that affect his early life?
Yes, it did, because he was not allowed to go to college.
Because of that?
He was self-educated because of that.
Really? See, I never knew that.
There were certain taboos, but I mean, he was raised by his father and his stepmother, who adored him, because obviously he was he was a very handsome person. He was obviously a beautiful baby and very bright, and so this would be the kind of child that anybody would want.
And I'm glad it was his father that raised him, biological father.
He was his biological father, and it was his father that, when he wanted the son to become a lawyer, the son really wanted to be an artist, and so he interned him to the famous art studio in Florence.
Oh,
and that's
wonderful.
where he got his beginning.
This is an interesting topic, and I think you're probably going to. This is the big idea here is even awesome. The fact that this could be a new trend, a new genre of book. So let me give this one away. I was sent a copy. It's called Leonardo da Vinci Gets a Do-Over. Call me if you'd like the copy that was sent to me. And Mark Friedlander is who you would look up, Jr., Mark Friedlander, Jr. Do you have a website, Mark?
I don't have a website, but anyone who wants the book, and it's very inexpensive, just goes to Amazon.com, types in Leonardo da Vinci Gets a Do-Over, and it pops right up.
And you said that teachers could go to the other website, the ScienceNaturally.com?
Anybody can, teachers or anybody else. If you go to the website of the publisher, which is in the inside of the book, there's an icon that you hit, or a link you hit, and you can print out a 60-page teacher's guide. It's free.
Oh, nice.
That is wonderful.
Nice.
ScienceNaturally.com.
Well, I love the conversation we had about our education system, and I guess as voters, I need to, or as a voter, I need to educate myself on our education, because I'm a little bit in the dark about it all. But I love this idea. I love the idea of fictionalizing history, and so that it can help children and anybody learn, really. I think this is the kind of book an adult would learn from as well.
Yeah, educational fiction.
Mark, thank you for your service, and thank you for being on the air with us today, and good luck with the book.
And thank you for inviting me to Florida. It was nice.
You are.
Oh, I hope you had a good time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, we'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. Tension growing in the Mideast. Sudan and Bahrain, following the example of Saudi Arabia, have severed diplomatic ties with Iran.
The announcement comes after attacks on Saudi Arabia's embassy and consulate in Iran over the weekend in response to the kingdom's mass execution of 47 people, including prominent Shiite cleric Sheikh Namir al-Namir.
Fox Radio's Jessica Gallagher. Armed protesters in Oregon still occupy a national wildlife refuge, objecting to the additional sentencing of Dwight and Stephen Hammond. The ranchers have already served time for what they call a controlled burn that went out of control on federal land. Protest leader Aman Bunde.
There have been very vindictive behaviors because they refused. There have been intimidations, and the list goes on.
In 2014, Bundy's father was involved in a Nevada standoff with the government over grazing rights. On Wall Street, the Dow down sharply after losses overseas. Fox News. We report, you decide.
Once upon a time, there was a sleepy bear. All he wanted was a comfy place to sleep. Maybe something like the inside of a car? He squeezed into a coupe. Too small, he thought. He tried an SUV. Too big. Maybe a station wagon. Ah, just right. But just as his eyelids began to get heavy, it was covered, thanks to a farmer's agent. Snoozy Bear, September 30th, 2013. Talk to farmers. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
There are times being a genius would really come in handy.
This is Houston. Your oxygen levels will be depleted unless you put the valve modulator into the auxiliary gauge after you have calibrated the flexternal matrix, not the external matrix. Do not touch that one.
I'm just the cook.
But thankfully, you don't need to be a genius to do your own taxes. Because with TurboTax, you can snap a photo of your W-2 with your smartphone, and it will automatically put your information into all the right forms. Intuit TurboTax. Taxes done smarter.
Ooh, ouch. Does pain have you glued to the couch? Yes, unfortunately it's true that every year we must get older, but that doesn't mean we have to deal with pain in our back, knees, or shoulder. If your muscles and joints are sore, don't worry anymore. Come get acupuncture from me and you'll be pain-free. Acupuncture starts as low as $35 at a Better You Healthcare. Call me, Dr. Erica Olstein, at 615-5566. Stop your pain from driving you insane.
Here's what you may have missed on the John Tesh Radio Show.
So how can watching a scary film make you happier? When the scary, heart-pounding moments end, we get a surge of feel-good chemicals, which can leave us feeling happy long after the movie is over. The study finds we can save 40 cents per gallon on average buying milk at the drugstore. The first step in breaking a hair-pulling habit is to simply be aware of it, because most nervous habits are done unconsciously.
Intelligence for your life on the John Tesh Radio Show. Don't miss this stuff.
Who doesn't love heading out on the boat with a family, hitting the ATV trails with friends, or blazing new stretches of highway with riding buddies? Your toys are your ticket to outdoor fun. At the McDonald Allstate Agency, we get to know you and help make sure you have all the right coverages. Plus, when you bundle your coverage for your car and your home with your boat, motorcycle, RV, or more, you can save up to 30%. So call the McDonald Allstate Agency today.